Damn, the light's going. Here I am humming the music here. Show some life, boys.
Honestly, I'm just happy we got it right for once. The music worked, the intro worked.
Started on time.
Yeah, we pressed play on time. We didn't sit in silence for like 30 seconds waiting for me to start. It was good.
I'm just laughing at the fact you said we're starting on time when I could clearly see it's 25 minutes late.
Well, no, I meant just the whole.
Like the music started.
Yeah,
on
like,
time.
Like recording started, music started at the same time. And
I followed you.
Thank you, Jordan. Mike,
I don't think any listeners are aware that we started like later than we planned.
I'm
Yeah,
making
yeah.
a joke.
they know
I'm
our
making a
our
joke
recording
They
schedule.
know our
Good
I'm
one.
schedule.
making a joke based on what actually happened.
This
But
episode's
moving on.
crazy. They didn't start it at 8:30.
Oh,
Oh shit!
Yeah.
You ruined it.
Oh,
I
my
ruined
Spoiler
our G-rated
alert.
podcast.
spoilers. 8:30 was when we record, and today we're 25 minutes late. Thanks, Mike. This just in. Nobody cares. Dun, 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 dun.
All right, go back into it, Ty. Come on.
Well, welcome everybody to the Fantasy Fools podcast. I am Tyler Scott, joined by Michael Sean and Jordan Patrick. And here we are a
I go by
podcast.
timekeeper now.
Yeah. We're going to talk to you about all the latest and greatest in fantasy football. And today we have a jam-packed agenda, starting off with finishing our list of rankings 1 through 50. We're going to go 1 through 25 and finish up that segment and really dive into where we drafted people versus where we ended up. And then we're going to end the episode with talking about some of those people, it's called risers and fallers. And Mike, I'll let you get into it a little later, but I want to kick us off by starting with ADP position number 25, and that was Najee Harris. He had an ADP of 25. He was the RB10 for the 2023 season, and he ended RB20.
Man, I think this was disappointing by a lot of people. People thought, maybe he'll have a bounce back year. We'll see. But then it became an RB by committee in Pittsburgh. So.
Yeah, people
and
really drafted him to be a bounce back candidate, and I mean, I'll be honest, I steered clear of him. I didn't have the best of reasons for it, but like I just didn't trust him, and it kind of came into showing that he really just could not handle that backfield the way everyone expected him to.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought, my theory was after a whole season off of resting, whatever injury plagued him last year, I thought he would come back, but he disappointed.
Disappointing.
We've got Travis Etienne Jr., ADP of 24. Ooh. He was drafted at RB9 and ended up on the season RB3. So really great performance by him. We got Jalen Waddle, ADP 23, wide receiver 11 in the 2023 draft, and ended up the season wide receiver 34.
How about that drop?
That's a big drop.
I never had faith that he was going to be this big star wide receiver. You basically drafted him. I drafted him in one league, and that was basically because his ADP was where it was. And I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I feel like I have to.
I understand that thought, but I'll say I got Jalen Waddle way wrong this year. I really did. I was someone who had a lot of faith in Tua, and I knew he had Hill, and I thought Hill would be taking, all the attention. And not that I expected anything bad from Hill. I expected a good season from Hill, but I expected him to also make Waddle like that secondary everybody kind of forgets about him, and he still had good numbers, and he just disappointed me majorly this year.
Yeah, he definitely disappointed me too. I expected, like you said, Mike, more of a Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel situation from Miami, and Ayuk I think benefits and plays well next when Deebo's on the field. It leaves him a little more open. I expected that effect to come to Waddle, just didn't see it.
I'm with you, Jordan. And I just want to touch back at the 24 guy on the list. Did you guys expect Travis Etienne to even go top 10, even by ADP? I didn't remember him being that highly hyped.
No.
I did.
You did? Okay. I might have
Yeah.
just missed that one.
Going in at number 22, we've got Jalen Hurts, who was drafted as QB3, ended the season at QB3, and I think that's great for those of you who drafted in 2023, but I'm concerned about 2024 with the potential
Me too.
penalty of the tush push.
I agree entirely.
I just
Yeah.
think Eagles are not going to be as good as they were last year or this year on offense this coming year. So I would be weary about drafting anyone on that offense right now as high as they went this year.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we're going to have to look out for. But number 21, drafted at wide receiver 10, ended the season at wide receiver 3. We've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think we all expect a lot of good things from this guy. I think you got your money's worth for sure, but I also think you did still have to pay some price for him.
I am actually shocked you're putting it that way, because I mean I'm more than willing to pay almost anything for Amon-Ra St. Brown right now. I think he's going to be a top 5 guy, almost locked in next year.
Oh, for sure.
You know, I would consider him late first round. If Amon-Ra St. Brown's the kind of guy that if he is somehow available at my second round pick, I don't have a choice. I'm freaking picking him.
Yeah.
See, do you think, okay, in a standard 12-person, 12-team league, do you see him falling to a second round? I actually can.
Not in a 12-man, maybe, but he's probably going in their first 4 picks in round 2.
First what?
Yeah.
First 4.
Oh,
Picks
first
of
4.
round
Oh,
2.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say if you're not going to get him, although I don't know, because the Lions had a great offense and Amon-Ra was the foundation. This guy was stacked up against. He was beaten by Tyreek Hill at wide receiver 2 and
CD Lamb.
CD Lamb. I might consider him first round, depending on where you want your emphasis. RBs, wide receivers.
Not only that, I'm pretty sure the Lions. They did have a top 3 offensive line this season, and I believe most of their starters are sticking around.
Yeah, so something to think about. At number 20, we've got Garrett Wilson, drafted as your wide receiver 9. Ended the season wide receiver 32. A lot of QB controversy there, and a lot of things going on.
No Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I'm not surprised there at all. We've got Josh Allen at 19, drafted as a QB2, ended the season as QB1.
Real quick, I'm surprised about Garrett Wilson.
I'm
Actually, I am, because if you look at when he was drafted, Aaron
True.
Rodgers was healthy. Let's note that.
That's true. All right.
So, I just
I'm
think
with
that's
you there.
noteworthy.
Yeah. Not many people are surprised with Josh Allen where he is. A surprising player here is Josh Jacobs, drafted as RB8, ADP of 18, ended the season RB27.
Ooh. Yeah, had a big drop, especially after he led the league in fantasy last year. I believe he was number 1. So yeah, big drop.
I can't say this is a surprise to me. I don't think the efficiency is there. The efficiency is not there for Josh Jacobs. The only thing that he has is the volume. And when you were talking about him already sitting out because he didn't have a contract, I mean, people just didn't expect him to play at all. And the only reason he even fell to RB8, to your point, Jordan, the only reason he fell to RB8 was because of the fact that he didn't have a contract, and people were saying, well, it's a big risk, but you're going to get him, and you're going to get a first-round talent whenever you get him in the 3rd round or whatever it was, right? But falling to 27 after missing 4 games and the efficiency not really being there, the Raiders weren't a good team. I could see this fall.
Yeah, another fall, talking about people who I'm just disappointed with, and I think we all are. Tony Pollard, ADP of 17. He was drafted as the RB7, ended the season RB15. Not surprised. I mean, I guess I am surprised. He was drafted pretty high, but definitely you're sad you paid all the money you did to get him.
You know what
happy
this
as a
shows?
Giants fan.
You know what this shows? This shows he actually had a pretty decent end of the year, though.
It is.
I mean, like, just
He ended up
looking at
actually
that,
scoring.
because he was awful in the beginning. He had a couple of good games in the beginning, right? Like the very beginning, like first 3 games. but like then he had some pretty rough weeks in the middle, like week 5 to week 10, and then he picked it up again between week 11 and 14. So right around when you're trying to get into that playoffs, I mean, I'm just looking at it though. He did destroy you in the playoffs, but to get into the playoffs, he really helped.
Yep.
Wildly inconsistent. That's where I'll leave it.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, I will say the Cowboys traditionally have a strong running back room on their team, so this was surprising.
Yep. Number 16, we've got Devontae Adams, drafted as wide receiver 8, ended the season at wide receiver 11. I think we're going to talk about him a lot later in the next segment. Patrick Mahomes, another one, drafted as QB1, ADP of 15, ended the season QB 8. Yeah, we're going to talk about him some more later too, so let's not dwell on Mahomes. AJ Brown, Mahomes, no. No. AJ Brown, ADP 14, drafted as wide receiver 7, ended the season as wide receiver 7. All right.
Wow, that is
These Eagles are consistent.
great foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Hurts, Brown. All right.
It's kind of funny, yeah.
The drop will come next fall.
You know, I honestly though, I really expected a top 5 performance from AJ Brown. I think a lot of people did.
I did.
And I think he was, you felt like you got a steal when you drafted him probably in the second round.
I agree with you. I think he was.
Yeah.
I think he had a great year. And you're also keeping in mind, like he finished at wide receiver 7, but he was like wide receiver 1 or 2 in the beginning of the season when he was putting up those 6 consecutive 125-yard games.
That was
like
nuts.
just totally dropped off.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say he totally dropped off. I mean, he was still a competent wide receiver. I'm not sitting here saying he was a dud. He didn't lose you weeks, but like he wasn't a game breaker for you.
Right. You really wanted this guy who could have carried you to the playoffs or to a winning record, and he wasn't that guy. You know, like he was hit or miss, and I think so are the Eagles. Sorry, Philly fans.
The
Eagles
Philly
suck.
fans are not going to be happy
I'm
next
not.
year. Yeah. Everyone talks about Philly
Are the Eagles
fans.
even going to make the playoffs next year?
You can't sit here saying
Spoiler alert. No.
You making that call right now? Is
making
that a
that
call?
call right
Are we
now.
making a
I
board
will
bet
make
right
that
now?
call
I bet they
right
make the
now.
playoffs.
I bet no. Honestly, I don't think Eagles will make playoffs next year.
I think they
Mike,
do.
you took off episode 100 again. Oh my god, I'm just looking at it now. You took off episode 100 again, and I remember you were gonna rap something. I just don't remember what you're gonna rap now. I'm going back and listening to every
Mike's
episode
rapping
again.
in episode 1. I did not agree to these terms.
Yes, because he did something and it was stupid. So I said, episode 100, you're rapping whatever he was doing. Oh, it was the honorable mentions, wasn't it? He said, let's wrap this up, or I'm going to wrap this up. And I'm like, you're a rap. I don't know.
What the fuck?
Dude, I'm putting it back on the episode schedules, okay? Stop taking it off.
I'm gonna keep taking it off. It's not happening.
Oh my God. All right.
I think you're
well,
outvoted 2-3, so it's happening.
yeah, I want to see you rap.
Yeah, Tyler, you're
I do
outvoted.
too. No.
No, sorry. All right.
All right,
getting back
number
into it.
12.
We already did. We missed number 13, Mike.
What about CeeDee Lamb?
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver
the Cowboys.
6.
The Giants
Skip him.
fan wants to talk about CeeDee Lamb, the Cowboy.
Listen, I gotta give my respect where respect is due, and
Preach.
CeeDee Lamb. Honestly, I wasn't sure. I feel like he had
Testify.
potential to be a top 3 guy. He went out and freaking did it. You know, not Jamar Chase, not Justin Jefferson. He went out and proved he can be a number 1 receiver in terms of fantasy and just football in general. So I'll give kudos where kudos is due.
Yeah, he was just amazing. Just from what he had, I guess, a decent start, and then after the bye week, talk about a guy who just exploded. He has multiple 40-point games in the league. I'm looking in right now, multiple more 30-point games. I mean, you don't get more dominant than CeeDee Lamb, who also did it all the way up to week 18.
Yeah.
And last point on him, it seems like the Cowboys had 2 players that this was their prove it year. Pollard You're going to step up and be RB1. CeeDee Lamb, you're like the guy now. No Brandon Cooks, no other receiver there to really like distract the defense. You're the guy.
Yeah.
So CeeDee Lamb stepped up. Tony Pollard not so much, but kudos to CeeDee Lamb.
I would also include Dak in that. Dak had to prove himself a little bit too.
This year?
I mean,
Did he? He lost the playoffs again.
he got them.
Dude,
You talk about prove it players. Isn't he still in a contract year?
I thought
He still does not have a
he's in
contract long term.
I'm not sure.
But
But what's with
anyway,
the Cowboys having quarterbacks that play great in the regular season and terrible in the playoffs.
I thought it was just the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Anyway, moving on to Stephon Diggs, ADP 12, drafted as wide receiver 5, ended the season as wide receiver 10. He's definitely going to be talked about a lot later. Derrick Henry at number 11, drafted as the RB6, ended the season as RB7. 7, which I think you drafted him where you wanted him, but I think I'm just happy he got there.
It's hard to imagine he got there because he really didn't seem like he was there. Like, he wasn't even really the number one running back on his team. Like, Tajay Spears took a ton. He took more snaps, I believe. I believe Tajay Spears took more snaps, and I believe he also had more. No, I'm not going to sit here and say he had more yards, but he just, like, Derrick Henry, like, willed himself into a top 10 performance again this year.
He did. And, Derrick Henry, for only being number 7, he was number 2 in yards this year.
Yeah, he basically just. I'm starting to believe he actually trains like State Farm and just carries around refrigerators. Like, he absolutely has to. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, he's very good. We'll see what happens. I think he could be a Raven next year. We'll see what happens.
Do you think he's a Titan next year?
No.
Do you think he plays a lot? I mean, I guess he's going to play, but he's 30 years old.
I actually do believe that Derrick Henry, I'm with Jordan here on this one. I think he's going to be a good fantasy asset next year because he's going to go in and be the ultimate Brandon Jacobs bruising goal line guy who's going to just go ahead. Put the best defensive line you got there. If you're on the 2-yard line, he's going to revolutionize the tush push. He's just going to basically just be the new he's going to be the new entire offensive line for some team.
Well, I think personally, I think the Ravens need the biggest position that they could use to beef up their offense right now is running back. They need a rushing attack that isn't Lamar, so I think they're going to go out and try and get Saquon or Derrick Henry. If one of those guys goes there, I think Mike's right. If you are the Ravens offensive coordinator, you're not having Lamar run it into the end zone if you're on the 2nd-yard line or 1st-yard line. You're having Derrick Henry fucking do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Jordan, that was almost a perfect segue into our next pick, but you took a minute to get there. Woo! And that segue was Saquon Barkley at number 10, drafted as RB5, ended the season RB12.
Wasn't on purpose. I just make magic happen,
Talk about a stretch magic assignment there. Woo!
I mean, okay, you brought up the word magic. I look at Barkley. He still looks good. You know what I mean? Just looking at him play, he deserves so much better than wearing blue.
Yeah. I'm not going to say that Saquon Barkley is Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is one of one. However, if Saquon Barkley in New York had the kind of supporting cast that Christian McCaffrey has in San Francisco, he could put up incredible numbers.
I agree. I mean, I just Christian McCaffrey is a worldly talent, and I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that anyone can be him, but like, if there's some people that can be him,
there's a few running backs
Barkley.
I think you could put in there.
Agreed. And like, again, we talked about one guy who I believe. I can't put Gibbs in the McCaffrey category. I can't. Not yet. He's got to get a little bit. He's got to get a little bit more strength to him. He doesn't have the bruising capabilities that McCaffrey does. But like electricity, he's there. Bijan might be able to be there. But again, not yet. But like, Saquon's been doing it for long enough, and he's been consistent enough when he's playing. He's just productive, and if he had an offensive line, if he had a team around him, he would be electric. He would be the best. He would be up there with him. I guess I'm just talking in circles, but saying the same thing.
For an hour, you're talking.
Oh yeah, for an hour. We're doing best on time right now that we ever have.
But Tyler, we started 25 minutes late, and our listeners
Thank
need to
you,
know
timekeeper. Yes, it's important. It is officially 9:14 p.m. Do you know where your children are? At number 9, we have Nick Chubb, drafted as RB4. Yes, RB4. He's not even on the list. Poor Nick Chubb got injured. We all watched that replay. Cooper Kupp at number
Real
8.
quick, can I ask, where are you guys picking Nick Chubb next year? In terms of RBs, are you considering him as your RB1 next year?
No.
I would say he's going to be a 5th, 6th round pick.
You know what?
That's fair.
You think he's going to drop that far? I don't think
he'll drop that far, but I think that's where he should be picked.
29 years old.
Let me put it this way. I would be considering him as my RB1 if I go double wide receiver first 2 rounds.
Ooh. Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
Depends.
If I can pull out getting like a Tyreek Hill and also like
all right,
a Puka Nacua.
Mike, shush your lips real quick. Nick Chubb or Derrick Henry next year?
I think for me, that's going to depend where Derrick Henry ends up. For
That's
example, if Derrick Henry ends up in a place like LA with the Chargers, where he's expected to kind of be an Austin Eckler and still be the guy, I don't see that going too well. He's 30. He's a little older. He goes to somewhere like the Ravens, or let's say he goes to the Falcons and he pairs up with Bijan Robinson to be the goal line guy. I could pick him up. I could see that.
So what's your answer?
Depends where Derrick Henry lands, but most likely Derrick Henry.
I think Derrick Henry's going to absolutely choose somewhere. He's going to have a list of teams that all want him, and he's going to choose a good team to go to, and he's going to be the goal line guy. I firmly believe that. I'm choosing Derrick Henry, and it's not even a question.
I'm going with Nick Chubb
because you want to be different. Got it.
No, I believe, man. That guy is a tank.
You
talk about goal line backs.
That tank got de-treaded.
Well, I mean, but for the 4 or 5 years before that, he was the most consistent.
I am not questioning his talent or how good he was.
Running back.
But the bottom line is he literally tore like 3 tendons in his knee. Like they're talking about it potentially never being like runnable again. He might never actually be able to play again.
The man lost his runnableness. Cooper Kupp at 8, wide receiver 4, end of the season, wide receiver 41. We're also going to talk about him in a bit. Bijan Robinson, drafted as RB3, ended as RB9.
Little honey Bijan.
Yeah, you want a little bit more from him.
Did this one surprise anyone else? Like I was genuinely surprised to see him still top 10 and or still a top 10 RB.
Oh. I thought you were going to say you're surprised that he got drafted that high.
Surprised me.
The lack of drop surprised me.
Really?
Yeah, I would have. Well, no, because I started using him a lot more near the end of the season.
He had some duds, but he had some real good games.
Yeah, I'm not super surprised he was RB9. That doesn't surprise me. Are you statting it up?
Yeah, I'm just pulling so. I guess in week 18, 16, week 18, 16, and 14, he was all over, and 12, he was all over 20 points. But then 13, 12.9. 15, he had 1.3 points. 17, 13.9. He was like every other week. He was like an every other week player.
Right, but when he was on, he was on. When
right.
He was off.
Yeah. I mean, that's...
You were looking a lot at the early season too. I mean, that's when he really popped off.
I stopped looking at him like honestly around halfway through the season when I was like, they're just not using him.
Yeah. At number 6, we've got Tyreek Hill, drafted as wide receiver 3, ended as 2. So pretty much exactly where you thought he'd be.
At all.
No. Travis Kelce, drafted as tight end 1, ended as tight end 3. I think he was kind of disappointing all season.
Travis
yeah.
Kelce was a disappointment if you didn't finish tight end 1. That's the bottom
Right.
line.
Right.
Yeah, fantasy-wise, disappointing. If you're a Chiefs fan, you were very happy with his playoff appearance.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And apparently you're happy with his jersey sales.
Can I ask you guys, what is your opinion on drafting Travis Kelce? Where are you drafting him next year?
Are you
As
talking
in
round,
position,
or are you talking
not
about position?
just position? Are you still taking him as tight end 1?
No.
No.
I'm not, especially because I think he's going to do the same thing next year. Decent regular season. They'll make the playoffs. He'll turn it on.
I would still draft him tight end 3.
3 to 5.
But it's also
3 to 5?
So I would agree with 3 to 5. I would feel comfortable at 3, but I also will say that I'm going to be very positional and round dependent on tight end next year because I just don't. I think the gap between the top and the bottom have just vastly narrowed.
Right.
Yeah. You're not.
Going on to ADP 4, we've got Jamar Chase drafted as wide receiver 2, ended as wide receiver 13. Look, you didn't get what you wanted. Joe Burrow,
This is just a sad story.
Yeah. I mean, if you have him in Dynasty, you're happy. If you had him in a regular redraft, you're sad.
Yeah, and I think there's some, he still had some really good games for not having a starting quarterback. I think, if you look at any receiver, look at Tyreek Hill. He was number 2 on the season. CeeDee Lamb, number 1 on the season. It's not a coincidence that both of them had their starting QBs the whole season.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and you're right. Going on to number 3, we've got Austin Eckler at RB2, ended as RB28. I think we're going to be talking about him a little bit later. Yes, we are. Justin Jefferson at number 2, wide receiver 1, ended as wide receiver 29, but was plagued by injury.
And Kirk Cousins' injury.
Exactly.
Double whammy there.
We talk about a lot. Good wide receiver needs a good QB.
You say that.
Yep.
He actually had of the 5 games he came back for after their bye, 2 of them were good. I mean, he had his week 18 was 36 points.
Yeah.
What?
He's still phenomenal, and the thing he's the kind of player like Tyreek, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson's. Look at Jamar Chase. They might not be top 5 without their starting QB, but they're still top 15.
Yeah, I think after missing 7 games, I think he still had just as many, if not one less touchdown than Travis Kelce.
Yeah. And our last ADP number 1, drafted as your RB1, ended the season as RB1. The real MVP. Screw you, Lamar. Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, he was just the GOAT. He was so good.
He genuinely had a legendary season. Shout out to him. I mean, this was. I think he broke the record for most games in a row with a touchdown. With 17,
no, he tied it.
One game. He tied it.
He tied
it. Still, that's a one of a kind season. He should have won MVP.
Yes. That was so. I think everyone in the league was rooting for him on that record. Everyone wanted it. I'm pretty sure the other team even wanted him to get it.
Absolutely. We're not. You don't give it up to him. You don't let him have it because then it doesn't really count. But yeah, I think everyone it was cool. And when something like that happens, MVP.
It would have been nice to see someone who's not a QB get MVP. That's my thought, and I really wanted McCaffrey to get a Super Bowl, but it didn't happen. But you know what? This guy might still be ranked number 1 next season anyway.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of like the Joe DiMaggio of football right now.
That's the crazy part. He's 27 years old, and I'm still struggling to see. And I hate drafting RBs in the first round, but he might have to still be my number 1 pick too. How do you not? How do you not go with Christian McCaffrey?
Especially with the stability, a big part for me is the stability of the team and supporting cast around him, and coaching. So that's why I think he stays very high. I think, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs, They both should stay where they expect them to perform as well next year.
Right.
Agreed. Mick Moses should number one.
Well, that brings our rankings by position. It is ADP and where you draft them versus where they ended. That brings that segment to an end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as many people were consistent like I thought they were. There was a lot more moves, a lot more very big lateral moves that I really expected. Big drops, big razors. But guess what? That's where we get to go into our risers and fallers, right? So
good transition, Mike.
That's what we're looking to do. So again, we only went over the top 50 in ADP. So we decided to do this risers and fallers section to try and go into other relevant players that we thought were worthy of talking about, but didn't quite make that top 50 in ADP. Now I'm going to go over my first 5 risers, and I think I'm going to start off with one of the obvious ones, one of the biggest jumps that I saw in the rankings, Puka Nacua, who was drafted at an ADP of 131. That's literally the 12th round or 11th round, and he finished wide receiver 4. You're talking about he's a first-round talent next year. Next up, right around the same spot, Kyren Williams on the same team. That's another crazy thing. On the same team, Kyren Williams drafted an ADP of 128 via Fantasy Pros, finishes RB6. Raheem Mostert, an ADP of 107, going to a new team, another 30-year-old back. 107, went all the way up to RB Dose. You drafted him again in the first round, guys, next year?
No.
That's where he's clocking in right there, right?
I know. I don't like it.
It's crazy, but I think that he's got to be at least in that. Thing is, I don't think he should be that high, but he's going to be in that conversation.
Here we go. Raheem Mostert or Jahmyr Gibbs?
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Oh,
not even close for me.
Yeah,
not even close.
What about
tell you
Bijan?
No.
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Nope.
I think no. Bijan or Raheem Mostert.
Oh.
Yep.
That's I might choose.
I genuinely okay. So Mostert has a way of finding touchdowns. He's like a touchdown machine.
The thing is, Mostert's health is a huge issue, but I mean, on the Dolphins, where they have him and Achane, and he seems to be that goal line guy, I might have to go Mostert.
I'd go Bijan.
I don't know. That's a good comp. I think that's a good comp. Not talent wise, but physical fantasy performance wise, I think that's a good comp. But I'm gonna go back. I'll finish my list here. Nico Collins. Shockingly, Nico Collins was drafted in ADP lower than Puka Nacua. But he was drafted at ADP of 139 and finished at wide receiver 9. CJ Stroud, man, he had a great season, and he pulled all of his wide receivers with him. And last but not least, my last riser here, Alvin Kamara. Now, I had him on my riser because I didn't expect much from him, especially after missing the first 3 seasons with the suspension. But he came out on fire. He was drafted as the RB26 and finished as the RB14 with those missing weeks. I thought that was impressive.
Yeah, and kicking off my list of risers, I'm going to start off with Jerome Ford, drafted as RB71 and ended the season as RB17. Had a late start this season with the Nick Chubb injury, but definitely a riser. Raheem Mostert, same as Mike. CeeDee Lamb, and I'm going to explain why I think CeeDee Lamb is a riser. He was drafted as wide receiver 6, and he ended up as wide receiver 1, which means, it's not a huge gap, but it's enough where you got way more value than what you paid for.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you're right. I mean, because the difference between wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 6 was actually fairly massive, and he really just you drafted him expecting him to be I hope you kind of got a good wide receiver, but you probably got him in the back end of the first, probably even the early end of the second. And he just was a first-round talent without a doubt, and you probably have another wide receiver who's top tier or another top-tier running back.
The thing is, to win the league, you need a few guys who do exactly what CeeDee Lamb did. You pick them at 6th, and they perform in top 3. They do a little better than you expected them to, just enough that you win in the playoffs.
Yes.
And he was one of those guys. Another one is Sam Laporta, drafted as your tight end 13, ended up as tight end 1, and as a rookie, definitely was huge this season. And lastly, I've got Breece Hall, another RB drafted as 14, ended up as 4. I feel like he was drafted pretty high into the in the draft order, and to end as 4 coming off an injury. I wasn't a believer because he was injured, but he ended up proving us all wrong.
Yeah,
I wasn't that big of
he
a
looked
believer
so
either.
good. He looked so good. I thought he actually would do good, but I mean, I think he impressed everybody.
One note on Breece Hall, though, I expected him to be pushing top 10, knocking on that door, if not already in the room, but I didn't expect him to be top 5. And I think, this is an interesting one because Jets quarterback situation is a bag of tricks right now. What Aaron Rodgers are they going to get if he stays healthy? And I'm curious how that's going to affect Breece Hall's value, because he really only pushed in the top 5 because they didn't have a good quarterback. I don't expect that to repeat. What do you guys think?
I think that Breece Hall will end up being another top 5 guy because I think that he's all alone. He's a star-studded talent, and I just think he's going to always be a focal point of that offense. And I do believe that the Jets are not a garbage organization, even though everyone else thinks so, and they're going to try and help that offensive line. They have to.
Yep, agreed. Ditto.
We'll see. And my second question off Tyler's list, Sam Laporta. Is he your number 1 tight end off the board next year?
Yeah.
Over Mark Andrews, over Kelsey, over Kittle?
Yeah.
Over Kittle, absolutely. Over Andrews, I'm questionable about that one. I will say, I mean, did he prove himself a lot this year? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I think he might do it again? I don't know. He's not Travis Kelce yet. I think Mark Andrews has the tried and true test of the time going with him. Honestly, I would put Hawkinson up there too. I don't know. Who would you draft first? Hawkinson or Andrews? Hawkinson or Andrews?
Hawkinson.
Andrews.
Oh, wait, no, it depends on the quarterback situation in Minnesota, but we'll see. But I think Sam Laporta is my number 1 guy next year. Now, moving on to my risers. First on the list, I got DJ Moore. I don't think anyone expected Justin Fields to have a top 6 wide receiver. He runs a lot, and DJ Moore is a great talent, and he made it work this season. Kudos to him. I put Travis Etienne Jr. This mostly has to do with his past seasons. He didn't really, last year he was 16th at the end of the season. The year before, I'm pretty sure he was hurt. He finally performed the way people knew he could. Kudos to him. Even though he was picked 9th, he moved up to top 3 and finally ended the season top 5. Jordan Love, I don't think anybody picked him in their top 10 QB that wasn't a Green Bay Packers fan out of their mind at the beginning of the season, but he ended QB 5.
They had love for love.
Love for love. Now, moving on to another quarterback, I got Brock Purdy, who he went from 16th, ended the season at 6th. Personally, I expect that to continue into next season with that supporting cast. The San Francisco 49ers are going to be hungry to win next year. I'm personally expecting him to continue to easily be in top 10, pushing top 5 again. Last on my risers list, I've got James Cook. He was 22, so you picked him expecting him to be an RB3, and he was pushing right into RB1 territory, So he definitely bumped up. I think that'll continue next year as well.
I love your pick of James Cook. I really do.
Thank you.
I have a lot of optimism for him. But where do you put him next year? I would
honestly,
where do you take
where
him?
he ended.
Do you take him or Bijan next year?
Bijan. It's hard, but Bijan.
I might go Cook. I just there's too many unknowns with the Falcons coaching situation right now, I think.
James Cook or Raheem Mostert?
James Cook.
I mean, it's very similar to the one the last time. I would probably say I would probably say Mostert still, but
Okay. Yeah, Jordan, I'm with you on the James Cook pick. The only thing that, from a fantasy perspective, he screwed you. He ended the season as RB11, but he screwed you a lot this season by having 0, 1, 2 point games. I mean, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but
That's a fair point.
he did have quite a few games
he
where he had only a few points.
There might have been a
he
few.
did not he did not
Sorry.
have as many as you think, Ty. The thing is,
Oh.
he just didn't get touchdowns. So I'll read it off, and this is in a PPR league, so that's where a lot of his points are going to come from. But going off of that, he's got 12.5, 22.2, 15.5, 16.1 in the first 4 weeks. Then he drops to 5.6, 9.1 in 5, 6. And then 7, he had 21.5, dropped to 10.5, 8.7, then back up to 14, 21. He was just all over, but
Yeah.
I
he
suppose
just didn't get the touchdowns. His efficiency was always there, though.
but I don't know if that'll change. Josh Allen's going to continue to throw and possibly run it in, so we'll see. But going into fallers, now this is 5 people who got picked higher than they ended. So first on my list, I got Patrick Mahomes. People picked him as QB1. He ended the season at QB8. You're probably not happy with where you picked him comparatively to who else you could have picked that was a running back or wide receiver. And honestly, I do expect that to continue next year unless they improve that wide receiver room. And I think they're ready to cut MVS. So we'll see what happens there. Second,
I
Yeah.
agree, but he did score a Super Bowl touchdown. We'll see.
we'll see. We'll see. And he did not have a good regular season though. Then Josh Jacobs, number 2 on my list. RB 8 to 27. Mostly he's on my list because he ended last year number 1. Not surprisingly, Christian McCaffrey was number 2 right behind him and bumped up to number 1. But I didn't expect a fall like this from Jacobs. Then number 3 on my list, partially due to injury, Justin Herbert. But I just had such high hopes for him this season. He got picked at QB6, and I honestly, I looked at that and I thought whoever picked him as the 6th QB off the board is going to be more than happy because I think he's going to finish top 3. Then he got hurt. So that was a big bummer. T. Higgins, huge fall, 14 to 49th. Again, a little bit of a drop, mostly because the quarterback situation, but a big bummer there. And then I think probably my biggest faller and most disappointing was Jalen Waddle. He's a very talented wide receiver, and when I look at the 49ers, I see both Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk in top 10. And I look at Tyreek Hill as number 2 and think, how did he not produce more and be a top 12, top 15 with Tyreek Hill distracting the defense?
Yeah, I like your picks. I mean, again, Herbert, I'm with you 100%. I actually thought he was drafted at QB6, and I thought he could be number 1, honestly, on the season. But again, just injuries plagued a lot of your guys, and the injuries plague a lot of these fallers, which is the unfortunate part. I mean, sometimes the guys don't even have to get hurt, but maybe it's their quarterback who gets hurt, like going into my fallers. I mean, Garrett Wilson, he was my first faller. He had an ADP of 21. He was a wide receiver 9, fell all the way to wide receiver 32. Aaron Rodgers' injury hurt him immensely. Going into that, Austin Eckler. He just didn't even have an injury. I don't think he did. He had I think a heel thing for a few he had a heel thing for a few weeks, but not that bad. And he just went from ADP 5 all the way down to RB 28. I mean, if you go look at RB 28s, I'm pretty sure you get RB 28s in your 7th rounds of your drafts. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's around there.
Yep.
Then Cooper Kupp, ADP 23, and that's a fall. I'm pretty sure that's a plummeted fall because he had that injury before the season, but it was still after a lot of people's drafts. It was after my draft. Yep. I know that. I got him in the first round at, I think, pick 5 or 6. He ended up finishing wide receiver 41, and not all of that was due to injury. That was also due to the emergence of Puka Nacua, who was one of my risers. T. Higgins, another one. I had a lot of shares of T. Higgins. I had a lot of shares of a lot of Bengals. ADP of 33, pick 33, wide receiver 15. I thought I was slam dunk in my third, fourth round pick on that one. Finished wide receiver 49 due to various injuries. Joe Burrow's injury going back, the same similar outcome with Garrett Wilson and his quarterback, and just didn't look as good. Had some good games, had boom games, but really just kind of hurt me. Last guy I had for a faller, Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, I'm kind of amazed he actually did finish the RB 36, but like when you talk about our ADP of a 30th pick, you need more than that. You need more than that because that's your third round pick, and you're using him for a fringe flex guy.
One thing about I like your list a lot. Austin Eckler's a great pick. Cooper Kupp, I had a guy, Justin Herbert, who was hurt, and I kind of expected Eckler to maybe perform a little better when Herbert was out because he might be a little more focused. And last point on your list, it's how coaches have influenced some of my decisions. Patriots, traditionally for me, I don't pick their running backs. I don't trust Bill Belichick's running back situation. He almost always does a committee, but now that's going to change. New coach. So we'll see what happens with Ramondre Stevenson next year.
So when do we start going into curses for the Patriots and saying like, oh, it's the Tom Brady curse. Tom Brady left and the Patriots suck. I'm waiting for us to start. Like, isn't that like the curse of the Bambino or something? Or is that Sandlot?
No, Tom Brady would have had to.
That was Sandlot.
Quite a few more years.
Curse of the Bambino is a real thing for the Boston Red Sox, but
it
was also the same. Yeah, that's when they went like 86 years without a.
So when are they going to call it the curse of the Tom Brady?
No, see the thing is
when they go 80 years without a Super Bowl.
No. It would have had to.
They're well on their way.
Would have had to have been Tom Brady was traded early in his career and then won 6 Super Bowls with another team. That's what happened with Babe Ruth.
That is all right. That is fair.
I'm just being optimistic here. Starting off with my fallers, I've got Cam Akers. You drafted him high, and he ended low. Actually, he ended up probably with less than 50 points total. So
yeah, Sean McVay said, "Oh, we have 2 great starting running backs." My ass.
Yeah, freaking Sean McVay. I also got Devontae Adams, wide receiver 8, end of the season as wide receiver 11. I think with a healthy quarterback, people expected more, especially from Jimmy Garoppolo. He didn't get it, and that's why I think he's a faller. Well, that's expected. Stephon Diggs, definitely a huge faller. Drafted as wide receiver 5, ended as 10, and that's huge. And he just, I don't think he passed my eye test as a high draft pick on a wide receiver this season. So not really looking forward to him. Jordan, we already talked about Mahomes. He was my 4th pick, and I ended up my final pick was another quarterback, and that's Justin Fields. Drafted as QB7, ended up as QB19. So you picked him early on, and he probably didn't even make your active roster for most of the season.
Yeah, Justin Fields. That's one that's interesting, and we'll see how that plays out. But I think he's going to be on the move. Unfortunately, I would love to see him actually stay in a Bears uniform, though. I got to be honest.
He did come out and say that he wants to stay with the Bears.
He also
apparently
stopped following the Chicago Bears on Twitter or something like that.
Yeah, he was. Did you hear his?
You gossip whore.
No. He was asked about that. And he said, what, just because I'm not dating a girl doesn't mean I'm not messing around with her. I was like, okay, that was clever.
I like it more.
That's clever. And then, but he had a big drop, especially because, Mike, I know you were a big advocate on his ability to use his feet. There's certain quarterbacks that they have a floor. I expected that from Fields. I didn't see it as much as I expected. The other person of major note, I think, is Stephon Diggs. Great call, Tyler, because I expected him to go into this season like angry the Bills have not won a Super Bowl. Angry and ready to be like, I'm here. Like, I'm going to be the Tyreek Hill of this team, the CeeDee Lamb of this team, like the Calvin Johnson of this team. And I just think maybe he's on the back 9 of his career. And even if he goes somewhere else, I don't think I'm picking him.
I definitely agree that he took a step back and he looked bad in the last half. But, I mean, you're talking a guy who went from wide receiver 5 to wide receiver 10. Like, he didn't fall that far.
but I had bigger expectations. Maybe this is my own personal fault, but I had big expectations for Stephon Diggs this
He
season.
did not pass the eye test. I agree with Tyler on that. He did not pass the eye test in the last half of the season, and he just wasn't getting the ball targeted to him. That was another problem. And when he was, it wasn't catching the ball. Like, he did not pass the eye test. I agree.
Yeah.
But, like, he was still a top 10 guy.
Could you imagine if Stephon Diggs requests out of Buffalo and then, hey, Kansas
Then he
City,
drops to, like,
I saw
35.
your wide receiver room. How you doing?
T. Higgins all the way then.
Well, that ends our segment, Risers and Fallers, and that just about wraps up our episode. Mike, wraps.
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Well, anyway, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking around, and give us a follow on Spotify, and give us a like on YouTube, and just make sure you spread the word and tell your friends. We'll be here until the season kicks off again, and more so then. But anyway, have a great night, everybody.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Have a good one. See you next week.